Hi, Paul Thomson here from Spitfire Audio. Today we're going to meet the 4 runners-up of our Stargirl scoring competition. Pinar has already caught up with our winner, Chris Hearn, but today we're going to offer some feedback on the runners-up to help them elevate their scores to the next level. The way that we're going to approach this is as if it's been written as additional music for a project that I'm working on. These are the things that I would be looking to improve on this current version. We're going to be looking at the arrangements, at how the music has been placed around the visuals, at the mixes, and any tips and tricks that they can use on future scores. So hi everyone, and thank you for coming and spending this time with us. We're going to have a look through everybody's submission. What I'm going to be going into are just a few things that might be kind of technical or artistic considerations that would, if you were writing this for me as an additional music cue or something like that, these may be the things that I might say, oh, could you just tweak this? So the music is very subjective. And these are all great. So just having said that, if we start with Jez's.
The bus!
I got it. Kid's looking right at me.
Not for long.
Is everyone okay?
Watch your step, kids.
Stay behind the bus.
All right, easy, one at a time.
What happened?
This was a mistake. We need to go.
We need to find Icicle.
Relax. Deep breath.
Great. Okay. So first of all, just from a technical perspective, the only thing really was that in the opening section, when we cut to the bus, the stuff that you've got going there is all quite low frequency, and it's a great design. It's a great idea. But what's going to happen is it's being drowned out by the effects of the bus. So what I would think about that section is working out a different way to arrange it so that you've got some sounds that are going to cut through all of that kind of low frequency rumble. Where Stripe catches the bus and lifts it back up from where the staff is kind of lighting up, it's, for my taste, just in the way that I would tell the story, I think we're still in jeopardy here, and you've switched into kind of heroic mode, which is completely understandable because you're telling the story from Stripe's perspective. But I think we can hold in jeopardy a little bit longer, and when we transition to inside the bus, even continue it into that section as well, so that where you bring in the kind of high frequency percussion stuff, at that point, I think would still hold it a little bit more tense to try and force the viewer to keep feeling anxious, really, at that stage.
Yeah.
At the point where we see, I think it's about 110, where we see the red truck, you've done a really great kind of transitional sound chord there. But I think that for me, it makes us think that Icicle is here, kind of thing. And I think that that's possibly a little bit too early. I might not signal it quite like that. I would probably wait a little bit longer. I would do something to signal danger there. So I think that that's absolutely the right instinct. But I would probably keep it slightly more generic and not quite so, oh my God, here we go. This is terrible now. So that would just be my take on that section. There's one more thing which I would ask you to tweak slightly, which is that I love the stop on the screen. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I think this is something that's very common. I think it's the instinct is absolutely there to you've got to leave room for that kind of scream noise. It's great, but then the following section you've left completely empty, and I think that probably I would pull something back in there. I would have just something to hold the suspense.
I was really torn there between leaving it and putting something in to keep the suspense going, but it's a difficult call for me.
It is a difficult call. I think silence is incredibly useful. I think it's a really underused, it sounds weird to say it, but it's a really underused scoring technique. Depending on what you're coming out of, silence does sound incredibly powerful. And I think that I would use it in places where you've just seen something that requires you to maintain a state of shock, and the camera is just unforgivingly staring at it. Then that's absolutely the time when I would just say cut, and then just leave you hanging there. That would be a great place to use silence. For me, I mean, as I say, it's really subjective. So a director might say to me, "I want it silent there." That might be the absolute instruction. But I think my instinct is something in there to just hold the suspense. Mm-hmm. Just a tone of some kind, something like that.
Yeah.
Was there anything in there that was there any specific problem that you had that you struggled with in the queue?
Not really. I mean, I've really got very little experience of doing anything like this, so I was sort of feeling my way through it really. But probably the staff bit, trying to get the timing and the feel, and when she's raising the staff, because it does feel like a heroic moment, and I know they're still in jeopardy, but I think the people in the bus kind of at that point maybe feel like they are being rescued, and maybe Icicle's gone away, because I think I checked out the scene the bit before it, so they do know Icicle's around, obviously. But it was just that bit that was a bit tricky, I think, to get the transition into, with a shot of her face where she's got the relief on her face. Trying to kind of get that in the music. I was quite happy with what I did, but it was difficult.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's the thing. I mean, there are so many different ways of approaching all of these different moments. Like I say, there's no real objective truth.
No.
You can write the same, if you started again tomorrow and wrote the same cue again, you could write it completely differently and it would still work.
I think it's the other thing is how many of the points that you could hit on should you do that with, because there's so many things, so many places where you could pick up on what's going on in the music, but it doesn't always require you to do that, I don't think, and it's choosing when to do it and when not to do it. That's another tricky thing, I think.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, you don't want to. They call it Mickey Mousing. You don't want to be too close to the action, otherwise it starts to pull the viewer out of the experience. But that's really great, especially considering that is the first time that you've done something like this. It's a really fantastic effort. So it's very good, Jez.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thank you for your feedback. It's really appreciate it. It's very helpful.
Great stuff. Okay, good stuff. So let's have a look at Mélodies next.
The bus!
I got it. A kid's looking right at me.
Not for long.
Is everyone okay?
Watch your step, kids.
Stay behind the bus.
All right, easy, one at a time.
What happened?
The This was a mistake. We need to go.
We need to find Icicle. Joey!
Okay. Hi, Mélodie. So fantastic. I love another lovely piece of music. Really, really great score here. Let's start with a technical consideration. I would say that your music is mixed too quietly under the dialogue and effects. You know, obviously it's not a mixing competition, but it really helps when you're pitching an idea. It really helps the director to be able to hear clearly all the great stuff that you've done here. So there's a couple of things that I would make suggestions for.
Not for long.
When you have the staff lighting up, you've got that fantastic top line on the brass, and then there's a gap on the cut to Joey. I can hear what's happening in the flow of the music, but for me, because of the fact that it's a gap on the cut, it feels a little bit distracting. So I would say keep the music flowing. One of the things that I've kind of learned over the years is things feel significant to the audience when you make a change. And that can be dropping an instrument out, and especially an instrument that's quite prominent. Then when you, after We Need to Go, at about 58 seconds in, the chord there sounds to me a little bit jarring compared to what's gone before, because it's in my mind, having listened to the whole thing, it's prefiguring what is going to happen at about 1:06, just a few seconds later. Which is a really great transition. And I think you're giving the game away a little bit too early. So I would say just allow that previous idea to just continue a little bit longer, and you can be non-committal. It's always fine to kind of tread water, to pedal a little bit, and then allow that moment at 1:06 to really kind of sing out. So that would be my second point. And there was one other thing that I noticed. It's a similar thing to what I was just saying to Jez before. On the music under the breath, you've got a similar frequency range to the sound effects. So I would go for something around that, because it is getting slightly buried at the moment, and you know that in the dub they want everybody to hear that breath. That's going to be really, really loud. So anything that you write that is in the same frequency range will just get lost. It will just disappear. So to avoid that happening, I would either go lower, so kind of low horns and bones, maybe something a bit kind of punchy down there sound, or something higher, in the kind of flute piccolo range. Anything that you can do around that to avoid that frequency range of the breath. So that would be my that would be the only points that I would pick up. How did you find it?
Honestly, I had a lot of fun writing it. I came home and was like, oh, there's a competition. Oh, it started 2 weeks ago. Oh, crap, I need to be fast.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I think, you've done an amazing job. It's really, really good. This is the thing, when we are confronted with a project and there's a couple of big action sequences and set pieces where that they've put a lot of money onto the screen, those are the pieces that are the most frightening, and those are the things that we'll often start with, because it just feels like a kind of, it's a hand on your shoulder. It's a kind of, it's the mountain in the distance that you think, oh my God, I've got to get up there. I've got to, yeah. So writing this kind of scene is really, really hard. So you've done a great job, and congratulations for being one of our 4 runners up. That's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so let us watch Arnold's next.
kids.
Stay behind the bus.
All right, easy, one at a time.
What happened?
This was a mistake. We need to go.
We need to find Icicle.
Relax. Take a deep breath.
Okay, great. Another fantastic piece. So let's start with the one technical observation which I've got. It's a really small thing, but it's something that I noticed, and it made me think. It took me slightly out, and what it is, at about 14 seconds in, there's a bass drum sound that sounds, in context with everything else that you're doing, sounds very dry. And I think that it's probably, you've used, I can see why you've used the sound, but with the sound world of the orchestra that you've got there, it makes me think that it's a sound effect for something that I can't see. So I would just say, when you're balancing your orchestra and balancing the band, as I always like to think of it, as, you know, we've got a band here, they're playing the score. We want them all to be in the same kind of frame, if you like. Anything that steps out of the frame starts to become confusing as to whether it's, I think the technical term is diegetic or non-diegetic. So is it something that we're supposed to hear from inside the scene? Is it something that's a sound effect, or that's some kind of, you know, music happening inside the scene? Or is it part of the score? And that suspension of disbelief that allows us to watch something with the score going on and not think, where's the orchestra, is quite easy to break, actually, with a sound that's not mixed in and blended in with the rest of the band. So that would be my only technical note. Now, there's a couple of things that I would probably tweak. So the first one is, when you first cut to the bus, you've got a gap in the music. Now, I would tend to do that if there was a sound effect coming in, something like a screeching metal or screeching kind of metal against stone or something like that. I might kind of pull out for a second and then jump back in. But here, I think you should keep going. I see why you've done it, because it's a long shot. So you're kind of saying, we're stepping back for a second to look at the whole scene, and now we're going back into it. But actually, I think that probably if I did that, a director might say to me, you're highlighting a point in the edit that I'm not happy with, or something like that. You know, you'd always find there's always bits and pieces where you think, oh, that's really great, I'm gonna point that up, and they go, oh no, don't do that, I didn't like that, or I haven't got the shot to cover it, or whatever. So that would be my first point. The second one, so I've got this at 12 seconds when Joey hits the back window of the bus. So he's fallen through the bus, hits the back window, and the music drops half a step. This is going to sound incredibly literal, and I hate getting these kind of notes from clients, but I think it should step up rather than down. We instinctively kind of feel like stepping up in pitch is raising tension and increasing the drama, and stepping down is relaxation. I know that's a total oversimplification, because that sometimes is completely not the case. But I think in this case, it feels like the music is stepping down, and it's kind of it's not quite going with what's going on the screen. And then about 1 minute 02, we've got that cut to Stargirl. And she's got a look on her face, and the camera holds there. And I think what that is, I think that the director and the editor have said, let's have a piece of music here to make us all think, you know, Stargirl, you know, she's determined, she's going to go for it, she's going to sort this out. And I think that you've stepped back so that we see her to hold on her, and then but for me it feels like she's a bit stranded. Moments like that where you see a hold in the picture and where nothing is particularly happening are usually moments where the director is thinking, this is where the music's going to take over and go, for 5 or 10 seconds or whatever, and do something dramatic. So I think that that's always something to watch out for. Watch out for those moments where it doesn't seem like there's a lot happening visually. That's when you're going to have to step in, because there's going to be a reason why they've put that shot in there. And if they're not explicitly thinking or telling you this is where the music, then I would always take that opportunity. That's your moment to really kind of shine. And give her the attitude. Help her attitude. That would be how I'd describe it. So how did you find writing the score?
Well, I find it really challenging because it's in just a short span of time, there's a lot of emotions going on. It changes really, really quickly from this to that. So as writing the music is really, quite challenging. And in fact, I did several drafts and and I haven't really decided as to which is the best, and I just rolled the dice, and this is probably the best one to enter.
Well, it was the right one to enter, wasn't it? Because it won you the runner-up place. So it's fantastic. I mean, it's a great. I think one thing that I would say is that, and it's something that I've not heard very often. I've not heard composers say it very often, but rewriting is absolutely the job. So it's very, very rare that you'll write something and that it's just signed off immediately. There's always, this is the element of being a composer where you're a collaborator, you're part of the post-production team. You're not writing your symphony. That's for when there's nobody, paying you and watching over your shoulder. This is definitely a collaborative job. And, and the edit goes through multiple changes. They're working on it day after day after day. And score writing is exactly the same. We are doing something that other members of the post-production team most likely don't know how to do. So it has a certain element of kind of almost magic about it, because it seems, amazing that you can conjure music up from nothing. But rewriting the music is absolutely part of the job, and that's something that all composers who are writing for picture have to be aware of. And not be surprised by. It's not because your music's no good, that the first draft just doesn't tell the story in the right way that the director is intending. So that would be my my big point there. But a fantastic track.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
okay.
Great.
Let's move on and listen to Dawn's.
The bus!
I got it. The kid's looking right at me.
Not for long.
Is everyone okay?
Watch your step, kids.
Stay behind the bus.
All right, easy, one at a time.
What happened?
This was a mistake. We need to go.
We need to find Icicle.
Here, give me a hand. Okay. Relax. Take a deep breath.
Joey!
Okay, great. Another fantastic track. So, Dawn, I would say it's a similar note on the technical side. I would say push the music up. So here you really can give it, plenty of welly, as we say in the UK. Really push it up and let it kind of punch through and sing through the action sequences and through those effects. My first point on the artistic side, the opening section with these kind of rushing hectic strings, I really love. Now, for me, the sound world that you've got there, the sound that you've chosen, it could be the actual choice of the sound. I would say it could be more spiky. It could be a little bit more kind of dangerous sounding. So there are two ways of doing that. One is to either change it for a more aggressive string sound, but you could also, if you're orchestrating it, you could also experiment with adding percussion, either tuned or untuned percussion, to highlight little bits in a kind of jagged way throughout it, and just kind of highlight the chaos of what's happening. Really kind of drive the drama of that moment and make it so that when you're listening to it, it sounds on edge. I think that would be my take on that. The actual musical material is great. It's just how you're presenting it and how you're orchestrating it. The second thing that I would say is the gap between when Stripe is landing and the red truck is appearing. I get why you've left it, why it's quiet there, but I would say it needs something in there. Now, you don't want to necessarily prefigure what's about to happen. You don't want to prefigure the danger that's coming. But I think that the way that the editor has cut it, and the director has told the editor they want to leave a bit of space there. They want something where something is going to happen, and it's probably because they want some score in there. So it's a similar kind of note to when we were looking at the Stargirl being slightly stranded in Arnold's queue. I would say here, I think that this gap could do with a bit of music in it. Almost, if anything, a lot of the time, the music is helping the edit, and that might be because the shot isn't quite there, or there's not quite enough material somewhere, or they wanted to cut to something different. So often the composer is doing something specifically to help the edit work better. But I think that here probably what's happening is they're just thinking there's going to be some music swelling here, so we'll allow that cut to kind of expand a bit. So that would be my note on that one. Then I would say the truck crash. I think there's some great sounds here, and there's some really interesting ideas leading up to it. But again, it's in the range of the effects, so we're losing the musical effect of what you're doing. It's a perfect opportunity, I would say here. Let's go back to the opening strings. Let's get some of that kind of that's a kind of jagged sound, those kind of rolling swells, and maybe put some of that material back in. I think that just in terms of musical material, and as a general note, there's one of the mistakes that I made at the beginning of my career writing was that I thought I had to constantly be generating new material. I had to come up with something new for every scene, keep changing things, bring in a new idea. And actually, weirdly, there is a kind of that becomes less effective as you go along, because what you want the audience to be is familiar with how they should be feeling. And the way that you do that is by introducing an idea to them. It might be a thematic idea or an orchestration idea, and then taking that idea and bringing it back when you want them to feel like that again. And the more familiar they become with that idea throughout the period of the score or the TV show or the film, the more effective the music is. So there's two different things here. There's the kind of idea of repeating ideas for simplicity, taking a theme and bringing it back, or taking a sound and bringing it back. And also of not having too many different sounds so that you're kind of confusing the ear, because what we are doing, our job is to communicate the emotion of the story as directly as possible. And And it's great because with music, you've got an absolute main line into the audience's brain. You can just go straight in there and you know, change their mood really, really easily. So that's the absolute task of music, is to tell that story. And the way that we do that most effectively is by not being too complicated and too, you know, having too many ideas for the audience to pick up. It's about having something really simple and saying, now you need to feel terrified. Something bad is going to happen. And if you reuse that material, it's absolutely fantastic, because you've got these ideas coming back, and it really helps to signpost to the audience, you know, what the story is at that point, and how it's moving forward. So that would be my artistic kind of pointers on that. How did you find writing the score?
I had a blast. I loved it because I'd never written to picture. What I usually do is I'll make music first, and then I'll put video to that. So for this experience, you're restricted to the video and the timing of that, and you have to compose around that. I think I probably had 7 or 8 tempo changes to get everything where I wanted it to be and everything lined up just right. I had a lot of arguments with myself over volume and over the mix and where to leave space and where to put music in. But there were some things that I felt pretty confident about, like the key change, and certain elements are just obvious. But some of the little subtle details, I fought with myself a lot. I did do 3 or 4 different versions, and I had my family listen to it. I just put the headphones on them because they're not musicians. So they're my guinea pigs, and they come in and listen to everything that I do. So since the competition, I'm putting together videos first in Movie Maker, and then I'm forcing myself to compose to those. And I think the restriction of that actually beefs up the challenge, and it actually makes me better with my choices, how to make that music bend around the video, because you can't change the video. You can only make the music work with it. So I've been practicing ever since the competition, making my own videos and then composing to them instead of doing it the other way around.
I often will sit down and I'll spend a few hours just isolating one single cue from a film that I think works really well, and try and work out how it's been done. What's the decision process that's gone into, you know, making that? Why change key here? Why transition there? Why is this bar, you know, 3/4 instead of 4/4? And I think going back and trying to reverse engineer the compositional process, as opposed to, like, you know, just saying, oh, the horns are playing in the top of their range and the strings are all doing marcatos. We can pick that stuff up. The really interesting thing is trying to reverse engineer the compositional process. Sometimes you can be watching a film and you can kind of watch an action sequence and go, wow, that really doesn't work at all. And that's really interesting as well. Why do you think it doesn't work? Why is that jarring for you? So, you know, I think I would spend some time, and I do this as well, I would spend some time on kind of study, you know, looking at things and trying to work out why they work or why things don't work is incredibly valuable. It might feel like you're not doing any work because you're not actually sitting writing music at the door, but this kind of thinking time is really important, and it helps you to come up with your own strategies so that when you do have a score in front of a film, you know, a visual edit in front of you, at that point you can go, right, okay, I'm going to try this thing that I'd learned from that score. I can see where I could make that work. And it's really useful to have a kind of bag of tricks like that up your sleeve, so that when you do end up with this kind of job in front of you, then you have resources to fall back on, and you're not kind of trying to reinvent the wheel every time from scratch.
I just think it'd be really nice to have some advice on, like, how to get further a career in this sort of thing, you know, because I've been doing more playing, keyboard player, and sessions and that sort of stuff, but I'd really love to do composing, and I don't really know where to start, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's really hard. I mean, it is really hard, but there is a way in. And I remember something that I heard Hans Zimmer say a long time ago, which is, don't try and get into the industry of today. Try to get into the industry of tomorrow. And I think what he was meaning by that was there are going to be film schools all over the place, and there are going to be a lot of people trying to become a director, trying to make short films. I wrote loads and loads of short films when I was starting out, and it's great because it gives you an opportunity to practice and to have a real working environment where you've got a director and you're trying to respond to the things that they're asking you to do while you're learning your craft. It gives you the confidence to know that you can come up with something, and that, when that you can do something and the director is pleased. And it gives you more stuff to put on your show reel. So I would say the first port of call is to find local media schools or film schools, things like that, and offer your services up for directors. I've even seen one of my earliest short films, the director had a budget for music, which is unheard of. But what we did was we got a string quartet in. And so that piece, what that score ended up as, was about 8 or 9 minutes of string quartet music that I was able to write and score. And for a long time, that had a kind of pride of place on my reel, because I was like, this is great. It sounds so good. When you have a live musician playing on your stuff, I mean, we're all musicians, so we all know this. But it's transformative, and especially if you can get more than one, that's just takes you to the next level. But scoring short films is definitely a really good first step. But again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to break into the industry of tomorrow. So working with people who are on the way up, as opposed to, trying to get to people who are already kind of up there at the top. That would be my advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you ever so much, all four of you. You've done amazing jobs here. It's really, really great. And, congratulations again for being runners-up. We've all really enjoyed listening to your music, and we're going to really look forward to seeing what you guys do next.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you very much.
So thank you once again to Pinar for hosting the competition, to Chris, our winner, and to our fantastic 4 runners-up that we just met. I hope some of this has been useful for you, and we really wish you all the best for your future scoring endeavours. Bye-bye for now.